Good morning. So I work with high schoolers at church, and last year I had sophomore girls, and we follow them. They stay with us through their high school years. So this year I have juniors, and we've been working on applying to colleges. We've been working on how to pick the right college, what college you want to look for, and how to apply, and how to write essays and stuff like that. And so one of my kids, Natalie, is a really excellent student. She takes AP courses, so she's more than a 4.0 student. She has plenty of extracurriculars and lots of volunteer work. So you would figure that she would be able to get into pretty much any school that she wanted. So when it came time to apply, she applied to almost all of the Cal States and UCs, and she applied to a handful of private schools. Well, when the decision time came around, they were receiving their letters. She was rejected from most of the UCs and Cal States and was accepted to every single private school. The reasoning for this bit on her rejection letter was for the California 2013 admissions freeze because of budget cuts that have already happened. It's very sad to hear, and it's very frustrating for my students. This kind of segues into what's going to happen this year on the ballot with Proposition 30. Now, Proposition 30 is, it's important to know about Proposition 30 because most Californians are confused about what's going to happen to their tax money, what Governor Jerry Brown's going to be doing with their taxes should this proposition pass. The first thing we're going to talk about is a more in-depth look at Proposition 30 and what it means for California taxpayers. The second thing we're going to talk about is what it means for taxes, what the tax implications are, and the third thing we're going to talk about is where the funding goes. Now, a look at Proposition 30 is a temporary, just a quick overview, a temporary 2-year budget that will increase personal income tax and a 0.25% and a sales income tax increase for the next 6 to 7 years, for California, and what it means, and where that money is going to go. And that money is supposed to be redistributed to schools through K through 14, which is kindergarten through community college, so that it affects us this year. For taxes, there's going to be what's called a PIT, which is a personal income tax increase. And now that is for people who make between $250,000 to $300,000 a year. There's going to be a 10% sales tax increase for those people who make at the higher end of the income tax bracket. And there's going to be a 0.25% sales tax increase for every dollar for the next 4 years. Now what that means is if you wind up paying $4 for a bagel and a cup of coffee, you'll now pay $4.01 for a bagel and a cup of coffee. Jerry Brown has promised that these funds will be going to education, and there's going to be an audit every year, a mandatory audit done every year that's available online for taxpayers to see where this money is going. According to an article by Catherine Timpf published September 26th of this year, it will balance the California state budget if it passes, but if it doesn't pass, it will actually create $250 million in tax cuts for K through 14 schools, but it will increase revenue. There's an old adage that you have to spend money to make money, and that's what Jerry Brown's idea is for this proposition. Now, the third thing that we're going to talk about is that there is an increase in sales tax and income tax, and will create $250 million in revenue this year. And over the next 7 years, it will create $6 billion for K through 14 schools, which is California through high school and community college. What happens if this proposition doesn't pass is that if this proposition doesn't pass, there's going to be $250 million in cuts to education, K through 14 schools this semester or this year. If it does pass, it will create more revenue, and it will be going to education. What happens is, if this proposition doesn't pass, then a professor here at Fullerton College has let us know that they're going to be cutting half the arts budget here, and for K through 14 schools, according to the Ballotpedia article published October 20th of this year, that that the cuts will be made to physical education programs and art programs for this year. So it will be, so the funding will be redistributed. The funding from the personal income tax increase and the sales tax increase will be redistributed to California schools, K through 14. If this proposition doesn't pass, it will create a 5% increase in tuition in Cal States and UCs, as well as an admissions cut again. According to an article by Chris F. Chu, published October 21st of this year in the Los Angeles Times, that Cal States and UCs have already been sending emails to prospective students who have come and visited the campus that there will be a higher cut in admissions for California community colleges or for California state universities, Cal States and UCs. So now that we've talked about in a brief overview of what Proposition 30 is, which is the personal income tax increase and the sales tax increase for 0.25% for the next 4 years, and the sales tax increase for the next 7 years, that will create more revenue. If it doesn't pass, it will also create revenue for California. And we've talked about the tax implications, which is the personal income tax increase for the higher income tax bracket and the sales tax increase. And we've talked about where the funding will go, which is to California schools K through 14. And we've talked about what happens if it does pass and what happens if it doesn't pass. So now that you've been fully informed about Proposition 30, I hope that you'll feel more confident in going to the polls tomorrow and voting. Thank you.